All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here for the Montgomery County Board of Education, round two of the superintendent interviews. We are so delighted to be working under the guidance of HYA. We have with us Dr. Sean Joseph, who will be supporting us as we go through this interviewing process. So at this time, I'll defer to Dr. Joseph.
Well, good morning, members of the board. It's great to be here. We will conduct the second round of interviews today, and we have three candidates before us. We have allotted 1 hour for each interview. We've asked each candidate to begin with an opening of 3 to 5 minutes. Then we will move on to board members asking individual questions in a round-robin fashion. And then we'll allow the candidate to conclude with a concluding statement. We will have 15-minute breaks between each candidate, and then we will conclude for today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you once again to Dr. Constance Evelyn. And Dr. Evelyn will allow you to begin with your opening remarks. And if you see me waving, that means our time.
Okay, thank you so much. I couldn't wait to get here today. I can't even tell you how excited I am and my family that you continue to consider my candidacy for your next district leader. Of course, my family and I have been discussing this at great length, especially my 87-year-old mother and my son, who is my proudest achievement. And as I was talking to him, and I often suggest that we should talk to the children and listen to what they have to say and be responsive, he said to me, Mama, how come you can't just tell them that your steps are being ordered in all the ways that you always tell me about how passionate you are about this work? And I said, well, son, I don't want them to think that I'm being presumptuous, right, about becoming their next leader in Montgomery. But in all seriousness, I have been talking to him and anyone who will listen to me about this work for a very long time and what it means to me, because I know from personal experience, as I alluded to in my first interview, that it matters where you go to school. And I have been covered, really, by the blood from the day that I was born. And I have been trying to pay it forward ever since. The extended part of the story is that when my parents brought me home at 2 years old, there was a neighbor family that I could jump the backyard fence and be in their backyard in seconds. And so I was blessed to have not just one set of parents, but two who were raising me. And I'm talking about this because it's important relative to how I've been expressing the collective magic in the community and what that will do in terms of impacting student outcomes. Togetherness is not a notion, is what I said, and they were together. And when they sent me across town to that school, and I didn't go to the neighborhood schools, as I mentioned, when I graduated, I had 3 high school credentials at the end of 8th grade. So I only needed one more test to graduate from high school at 13 years old. And I'm not that smart, y'all. It's because of the school that I went to. I could speak French fluently, and I could type 90 words a minute. And I believe that we can establish those same expectations and same opportunities in Montgomery schools. And we should. We owe it to our children. They deserve to understand what the dream can be, because many students don't even know, right, what it is that they want to achieve or what it is that they can achieve. But if we create the right conditions in Montgomery schools and we create the right opportunities, we can open up their minds and their dreams to be more inclusive of the things that we know will help them be full participants in this republic. I went on to succeed in life, but what I'm trying to show you is that their formative years in our schools, where they spend most of their time, are the most critical thing in their lives. It changes the trajectory of an entire life, of an entire community, of an entire region, of an entire state. We have that opportunity right now in Montgomery schools. We are at a point of inflection where you need to bring a leader who's willing to roll up her sleeves and work shoulder to shoulder with you in a shared vision so that our students can live their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, in no particular order, we will begin our questions with Ms. Cloud.
Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon.
Please summarize the 3 pathways to graduation requirements for Alabama high school students and what instructional tools are used to support these pathways.
Thank you so much for asking me that. I have been, again, in preparation for this interview, doing a deeper dive on the Alabama State website, on your website, and news outlets. And so Alabama is not unlike many states where there are several pathways to graduation. In Montgomery in particular, in Alabama, there are 3 specific pathways. One is a general diploma, 24 main courses and electives, and those are for students who are engaged in the general curriculum and maybe in some accelerated courses as well. Then there is a more abbreviated curriculum for those students who perhaps are more struggling learners, but that can still access the courses in a sort of modified fashion, and they are required to take less electives. And at the end of that, they can still access a free and appropriate education, and I want to say reach for still the general diploma up to the age of 21. Then you have the 3rd main pathway, at least that I've read about, for those students who really have to qualify for being cognitively impaired. And that pathway does allow them, again, access to walk across the stage and access the local high school diploma. But it is an extremely modified curriculum and really focused on just essential skills upon high school graduation. And those students as well can come back and, I want to say, reach for a higher level diploma up to age 21 by law. And it's the same way in many states, that all students are entitled to a free and appropriate education up to age 21. And of course, we would hopefully have a pathway for them to, if they wish, if they endeavor to come back and reach for the general diploma or the essential diploma, we would hopefully have a system to stay in touch with them so that they know how to continue doing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Mrs. Claudia Mitchell.
Good afternoon, and
Good
welcome
afternoon.
back.
Thank you.
As we look at, I'm thinking about community engagement.
Mhm.
How would you build trust with communities that have historically felt excluded or marginalized by the school district? And how would you incorporate their voices into the decision-making process, particularly in shaping the academic involvement plans or improvement plans?
Yes. Thank you for the question, Board Member Mitchell. I think in Montgomery, we have a tremendous opportunity to reinvest in our civic capital. I think I mentioned last time, we can't do this alone. We really need to re-engage our families. We need to ensure that they know how to partner with us meaningfully in the education of their child, because they are their children's first teacher. And so we have to go beyond newsletters. Newsletters are a good start. I'm not trying to poo-poo newsletters. But we have to make sure that we have several channels of communication with community members and families. And I mentioned before, sometimes we have to meet them where they are. There's many, many ways to engage families. There's starting with the structures, the pre-existing structures that you have, and I hope that you have PTA organizations, community-based organizations that you have partnerships with, where you would invite yourself as a superintendent, board members, and teachers and leaders to be in those spaces, to talk to parents at pickup time or at drop-off time. By the way, we have to have many different times that we're meeting with families. We have to make it accessible to all families. Just to have, a small public service announcements about what we're doing in our schools. We also need to create district-wide committees where we're inviting families to come in. We may even have to create some kind of parent engagement institute, right? So that parents know that we have a tremendous interest in partnering with them in ways that are comfortable for them, in ways where they feel welcome, in ways that they know that their voices are going to be heard and reflected in the shared decision-making that we engage in. And it's at those times when we're with parents that it's a critical opportunity for us to continue talking about the strategic plan goals, the action plans. Maybe we create a dashboard. Maybe we create a dashboard of parent engagement and about the things that we're doing in schools that are important to us, that are aligned with the strategic plan, and how we are making progress on those goals. And then we ask them and we tell them how they can continue to be helpful to us to move the ball down the field, so to speak.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Lisa Keith.
First, I just want to tell you we're just as excited as you are.
Thank you.
And you just, I don't know why, you just have this refreshed look. Last time you seemed like a little, like everybody's scared, but now you just seem so here. So, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to mention some of the things you just said. You said that I like that you said, and combine it with, I took a quick look at your 4 priorities. And it was, you said with kids, sometimes we have to meet them where they are. And I am really excited that on your 4 priorities, your top priority was building trust and collaborating with the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope, and you said you were going to do that within the first 30 days. And I hope that doesn't, I hope that is an idea that stays and not a check box. The question that goes with that is Montgomery Public School faces systemic challenges in ensuring students reach proficiency in literacy by 3rd grade. What comprehensive literacy plan would you develop, and how would you ensure that it addresses early intervention, family engagement, and culturally relevant text? And I want to add this. You said something about a dashboard. Where would you put this on your dashboard, or how would you make this on your dashboard for our students? Because we said, we have 16% proficiency in math, 36% in reading. Where on your dashboard would this fit? And how would it look?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. So let me take the first part of the question first, in terms of ensuring that we are meeting the expectations that we set, which is that every child read on grade level by 3rd grade. And I hope that they read on grade level long before that, to be honest with you. So one of the things that is an opportunity for Montgomery schools is the curriculum audit. And I don't know how far we have gone in terms of reviewing that curriculum audit and understanding action steps aligned with the recommendations that are aligned with the audit. But I also think that, so that speaks to ensuring that we have a viable core curriculum for literacy in our district. So from that, if we determine that we have a viable core curriculum and that the materials that we're using to teach students are culturally responsive, do students see themselves in the text that we choose perhaps to teach reading? Do they see themselves in the choices for the books that are in the classroom libraries? Because it's important. It's important that they see themselves. They feel valued. They say, hey, that person in the book looks like me. I'm attracted to that book, right? Do we have enough trade books in the classroom so that students have a choice of the kind of book that is, I want to say, motivates them, that is aligned with their interests, and that is at their reading level? Because they have to be able to access the texts that are in the classroom. And so beyond that, I really believe, and I've done this work in at least 2 districts, that we conduct a literacy audit. And it's something that we can do in-house, because a curriculum audit is one piece of information, one piece of data, so to speak. But a literacy audit is really more focused on how, not the what materials we're using, but the how have we decided as an organization that we teach children to read. How do we do that? And we should have a definitive answer to that across the board. Again, I talked about in the first interview some non-negotiables that go on in the literacy block at elementary school. And so how long is the literacy block? Is it the same length of time across all schools? Are we creating equitable access to literacy instruction, K-3? Are there the same non-negotiables in terms of instructional strategies that we're using? Are we talking about phonics and phonemic awareness? Are we practicing fluency? Do we have small group instruction? Are we focused on comprehension and building vocabulary? Oftentimes, they call this the daily 5. I understand that we call this the science of reading now. But as I said, let's get back to basics and make sure that teachers are prepared to be engaged in these instructional strategies and that they know how to do them. We can't keep asking teachers to do things that we haven't provided targeted professional development for. So that's the first part of your question. Did you want to interject something?
Clarification on that. I guess I'm putting you on the spot, but clarification. You brought up the curriculum audit and certainly that, you know, the whys of the literacy audit, which I like. But on a 1 to 10, you mean on a 1 to 10, how important is when you see that curriculum audit? How important do you think that would be to you? To use when you see that? I mean, would you just look at it and set it aside, or would you look at it and say, hey, this has merit?
I think every piece of information should be treated as extremely important, particularly if the district has invested time and effort into engaging in that work. As I said in the past, beginning a new leadership position should not be like riding a bike. You should approach the position with integrity. You should have respect for the good work that's already being done in the district. And you should not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to get to the second part of your question, which is how will you communicate progress on this particular strategic goal? And it is your primary strategic goal, and it should be. It is quite appropriate for student opportunity and student achievement to be a primary goal for this district. Again, I believe that in order to re-engage the community, we have to be more communicative, and the information has to be front-facing and easily accessible by the community. There are many ways to do this, but a district dashboard that is public, that is updated regularly, is one way that you can achieve this goal. You could also print a page and put it in a newsletter every month, because the dashboard will continually be updated, and parents and community members, the broader school community, will be able to see how you're approaching that goal. And more importantly, there could be some notes in the newsletter about how they can continue to partner with us, right? Maybe we adopt Light Sale, which is it's a digital library of books that everyone in the community can access on every grade level. And then the superintendent goes sailing with the kids on Sunday, and she reads. And they know which book she's going to read, so they can access it online. And then the next week, the mayor reads, right? And then the next week, board member Keith reads. This is how we continue, right, to bring people into the fold. You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Brenda DeRamus-Coleman.
Thank you. And Dr. Evelyn, welcome back.
Thank you.
I was, like my colleague here, happy to see that some of these items that we're concerned about are already in your priorities. And one of those spoke about the relationships with us as board members. Successful superintendents and school boards tend to function as partners in governance rather than adversaries. How would you establish and maintain productive, collaborative relationships with the Montgomery Public Schools and the Montgomery County Board of Education?
Thank you so much for the question. I know from my work with boards over almost 2 decades that the relationship between the board and the superintendent is critical to district success. Full stop. It's worth repeating. It's worth repeating. And any good relationship has the hallmarks of communication, trust, collaboration, regular meetings, sensitivity to one another's needs and one another's values. All of you are representing different parts of the community, and it's important for me to know what your constituents are expecting you to share when you are sitting at this table with the superintendent. Barring that, my first 30 days, I'm absolutely meeting individually with each one of you to talk with you just about those things, right? What are your expectations for communication, for how your constituents speak with you and how you are able to share that information with the board as a whole? I think we should retreat in the first 30 days as a full board with an outside consultant, right? A third party, so that we're all free to share what we're thinking without having to facilitate the meeting. That person would be an expert. It would be the choice of the board, not the superintendent, to bring that person in here and facilitate the ways that we will work together, right? The highly effective governance practices that boards and superintendents engage in, so that we have some protocols that we will follow, right? And that we will hold one another mutually accountable for. The one thing that I've advised superintendents, because as I said, I've been an executive coach to superintendents over the last 3 years, is that you never want to find yourself in a position as a superintendent where you feel like you're policing the board. I mean, that's a really important thing to say. And I don't want to be off-putting, but I know better than that, right? And so when you have this work session and there's agreement about mutual accountability, everyone will hold themselves accountable because it will become a part of the record, right? You have board policies where you can attach a regulation, and after this board work session, you can say, this is what we agreed to in terms of how we will operate as a full governing board. These are the do's and don'ts. And then when one of us, including the superintendent, because I'm not infallible, steps outside of that protocol, we have a mechanism and a document that we can go back to and say, hey, let's take a step back and let's start again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Ms. Pamela Portis.
Dr. Evelyn, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
One of our, one thing that you'll consistently hear us talk about here is stability. And so my question has to do with just that. I know in your past that you've probably dealt with this, but can you explain to us a little bit how you would go about planning for school and district leadership, and how would you cultivate a pipeline of future leaders within Montgomery Public Schools to ensure long-term stability?
Thank you so much for the question, and it is critical that we focus on what we're doing, again, from hire to retire. And so in terms of the teacher ranks, we want to make sure that we're regularly communicating with teachers, and more importantly, that teachers, teacher leadership, and union leadership has opportunities to talk with us about their needs, their concerns, and vice versa. And so I hope there's a mechanism for that at the building level and at the district level, because if there isn't, we would create one. Secondly, I also think it's important that the good work and the hard work that teachers have been engaged in Montgomery County schools, Montgomery Public Schools, is recognized. And not just for the work that they're doing inside the schools. Oftentimes, teachers and teacher leaders are engaged in work outside of schools that they don't talk about, right? Because they're, I want to say, moral junkies. We're all moral junkies, right? Who step up to the plate to be educators. And they just do because they love kids. And some people in the community have been, for example, I remember in one district, there was a retired teacher who was a retired math teacher, high school math teacher, who was providing tutoring for students free of charge for 15 years into his retirement. In one district, I created a Board of Education commendation ceremony, and we invited him in retirement to be recognized by our district for his good work. And so systems of regular recognition for the work that the people are doing, educators in our district, and anyone, I want to say anyone who is working with our students every day, custodians, bus drivers, secretaries, people working in the cafeteria, they are doing things every day that we don't know about. We might hear about it in passing and say, oh, that's nice, right? And then, or I'll visit a school and they'll say, well, so-and-so, you know how they treat these kids, I'm sorry, y'all, they put a little bit of extra food on their plate every day or whatever. I mean, we're not going to recognize people for that, but you know what I'm saying, right? So anyway, I don't want to go on and on. Regular systems of recognition. So in terms of leaders, we want to make sure that we are working with our leaders to say, hey, do you see any talent, any leadership talent already existing in schools? Can you grow talent, right? Because those people are the ones that are always signing up for the committees, right? Always have the ideas at the faculty meeting. They want to be more engaged. And someone tapped me once and said, I think you could be a leader in schools. We need to be doing that in our schools, and we need to be talking to our principals about that. Same thing with principals, right? Those principals that understand, first, they have a responsibility to their schools and to the district, and they continually demonstrate their passion and interest in wanting to be a part of Montgomery schools and doing more. We have to have a system, right, that recognizes them and that encourages them to stay and to grow in our district. So, targeted professional development, opportunities for them to have access to more training that is perhaps supported by the district is also a way to make sure that we retain our staff. And I want to say, this partnership with universities is critical. The dual enrollment, CTE programs, local businesses, we can partner with these folks who are outside of the district to retool our staff, to re-engage our staff and build more credentials so that our students have more opportunity. And I think we can figure out how to do that together. I have done that in districts in the past, and it was at a minimal cost.
Thank you. Your next question will come from me, Erica Watkins-Smith. Alabama's school funding structure is heavily relying on ad valorem, which is our property taxes, which vary widely across districts. How would you advocate for sustainable funding solutions to support equitable educational opportunities for all students in Montgomery?
Thank you for the question. One of the first things I do in the first 30 days, of course, is take a look at the budget with the budget experts and the board in a school district. After determining where our strengths and opportunities for capturing additional resources are, my next steps are typically two places, to state legislators and to the state education department. I've already established some relationship with the state education department in Alabama, to be transparent. And I believe that, again, folks, local politicians, and the state education department is standing at the ready to help Montgomery, Alabama schools. And we just have to be very specific and succinct about the kinds of help that we need and how we would allocate these additional funds. And so, just to be more succinct and answer your question directly, first I want to evaluate what our resources are, financial resources are. I want to see where our risks are, because we certainly do have risks, particularly at the federal level. You know, our Title I and Title II funds are at risk right now, unfortunately, and not just Montgomery, across the nation. So we want to make sure that we're prepared for those risks. And those are some of the things that I would talk to state legislators about and the state education department, because I'm sure that, again, working collectively, we could identify additional resources as long as we are pointed about why we need them and how we will spend them.
Well, I want to add just a little bit more to that. Even on the local end where you may lose support from local officials not wanting to support MPS, how would you go about addressing that?
Well, I'm not sure how much I want to say. Let me just say, I know that, I think I know that the additional funds that you secured through the tax base in 2020 or 2021 was a heavy lift. As I said, there are several fiery hoops that you had to jump through, and then you had to wait in order to be able to collect those funds. And so that may be what you're alluding to in terms of a lack of support. So, you know, I want to be collaborative and I want to work closely at the local level. But sometimes you have to cry out and say, hey, this is not fair. Why is Montgomery being treated this way? And you have to do that in a way that is professional, that is structured, and that is respectful. But you have to call it out. Again, I would call it out, and I would ask for support above the local level to correct it.
Thank you. Our next question will go back to Mrs. Claudia Mitchell.
As our president sort of indicated, we've had some historical distrust between the community and MPS. My question for you is, can you describe a time when you had to rebuild trust with a community that felt disenfranchised, and what steps did you take at that time, and what was the outcome of the situation?
I have had to rebuild trust in several communities with those parts of the communities that have felt marginalized or just unwelcome to the table in terms of the discussion. I think I talked about the crossing guard situation in Auburn, New York, and how the community became very distrustful of the school district because they thought we removed the crossing guards. But just to go a little bit deeper, I remember in Valley Stream, for example, there was a partnership between an after-school program and the school district. And that partnership was in existence for a long time, over 2 decades, where students were able to stay after school with this particular vendor. And the board said to me, Connie, I really want you to look into this partnership and how we can create an extended day program that is aligned with the school day and where children have extended learning from their classroom into the after-school program. I actually asked a few board members, how long has this company been providing this service? One of them said to me 3 years. One said 10 years. One said, I don't know. And so I got all of these disparate answers, and I tried to get accurate information. I promise you I did. Well, I didn't have accurate information. And when we went out, excuse me, to proposal, when we floated the request for proposal to asked for a new company to come in. The community showed up at the next board meeting. I think there were over 100 people there, and I had already been there for 4 years, and I think no more than 10 people ever showed up. So I thought, okay, there's a problem. And I already knew, right, why folks were there because, I always had my ear to the ground. So in executive session, I talked to the board about what I thought was going to happen when the meeting opened. And it did. People came, right, to the mic and said, we already signed up for after-school care. Do you know that we signed up in February and you're sending out an RFP in March, and that this company's been here for 25 years? And I said, wow, no, I didn't know that. Let's talk. I stopped the meeting. I stopped the board meeting. I asked the people who were in the room, who were still there, to come and sit with the board and I. And we immediately had an emergency meeting with the parents. And one of the things that went a long way with these folks was the superintendent, because the board president was continuing to try to explain away why we were moving forward, and I saw where that was going. And I said, and I'm not trying to throw the board president under the bus. He was doing the best that he could. He had been a board member for over 30 years in that district. But I said, I put my hand on his arm and I said, give me a minute. And I said, you know what? We're very sorry. We're very sorry that we made this mistake. We didn't intend to do anything to harm your children or to cause mistrust in this community. We will move forward with the same vendor that we have because you're already signed up and you've paid the deposit. We will delay this RFP. That was it, Board Member Mitchell. Everybody went home. They accepted that we had taken a misstep, and we were very transparent in why we were going out for the RFP, what we had hoped to achieve in bringing a new after-school program in, and we engaged PTA presidents in taking a look at their operations in nearby districts and how much success they were meeting with, and we adopted that same company the next year. Because every idea is not a well-timed idea. It could be a good idea, right? Okay. Did I answer your question?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Taking
thank you.
ownership is always good.
Yes, yes. You're
The
welcome.
next question will be coming from Ms. Pamela Cloud.
Question number 2 from me. Please tell us your understanding of the Alabama Teachers Bill of Rights and how that bill helps improve academic achievement.
Thank you so much for the question. As I said, I've been trying to do a deeper dive on the state education webpage and just generally speaking, reading about Alabama schools and Montgomery schools in particular. And I did come across that Bill of Rights. And I just wanted to say, summarily speaking, I believe the intention of the Bill of Rights is to ensure that both students and teachers have a shared expectation about student behavior in the classroom. At first blush, it might seem like it's an opportunity for teachers to formally exclude students from the classroom because of misconduct. But I didn't interpret it that way. Although it does give them the right to do that, they have to follow specific steps to justify why they are asking a student to be removed from the classroom. Some of those steps include having a formal classroom management plan. I thought that was great because we know that teachers in their first 3 years, that's the thing they struggle with most, right, is managing the classroom. And so I thought that was a win for teachers and students, that teachers would be required to have a formal classroom management plan that they would then share with the principal. And isn't that a great idea, that the teacher and the principal would be having a comprehensive discussion about their classroom management plan. And then that creates another opportunity for the principal to work with the teacher to say, hey, this is exemplary. Can we share this with the whole school at a faculty meeting? Because I'm sure there's a template that folks are using, but again, teachers are highly professional, and very creative. And so I just think it's a win-win, really, for the principals and the teachers if they, it's always the how, not the what, if they utilize that system to build something that helps students understand what the expectations are, that helps students know that we have high expectations for their behavior in the classroom and why, and what the ramifications are if they don't meet those expectations. Certainly, I hope some of the classroom management plans talk about helping students understand that the best kind of respect is self-respect. Certainly, I hope they talk about that. I hope that they talk about respect for others, and I'm old school, respect for your elders, and respect for your family name, right? When I left my house, my mother said, "You're not just going by yourself. You're bringing everybody with you when you cross the threshold of this door. You will not bring shame to this family name." And so that was a lot of pressure, but it meant something to me, as you know, and you know all the reasons why. So anyway, to get back to your question, Board Member Cloud, it provides an opportunity for a structure for classroom management. It provides some steps around mutual accountability, that the principal's responsible for being responsive to the teacher, right? No more of this, students get to create so much of a disruption, right? So that other kids can't learn and then, I don't know, they're back in their next period class. We can't do that. Everyone deserves a safe learning environment, right, that is conducive to a building community. There are several steps to the Bill of Rights and all of these, I want to say, progressive disciplinary actions that must be taken before a child can be excluded, and there's an opportunity for them to be re-engaged in the classroom that requires the family to be a part of that process. Again, I think that's a win. So I hope I've answered your question.
You did, but I want to say this. We come from families that always say, "You're representing us. Hold your head high and act accordingly."
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Dr. Lisa Keith.
I have to say, I'm going to start out by saying that was an excellent answer on the Bill of Rights.
Oh, thank you.
I'm impressed. I just hope, the only thing I want to say on that is nothing against you. Since it's a new thing, I went through a practice on it, or a training on it. And our teachers, you brought up everything, you nailed it. But our teachers did not understand that classroom management plan needs to be signed first thing, because they give you like a 10-day notice, and they're covered. And like you said, it's a win-win for everybody. And I need to get off that, but I was very impressed, and I just hope people here or teachers here get it signed. Do what it says, because if you go by that, you're pretty much covered. I'm pretty sure I've asked this question already with you. I'm going to add a little to it and just, I guess, try to get some more specifics out of you.
Okay.
How would you cultivate teacher leadership across the district to serve as instructional leaders and mentors, especially not only in the fields of literacy and mathematics, but I'm talking about across the board. I mentioned to you that we had 430 emergency certified teachers that never set foot in a classroom to learn how to do an internship. So they're just stuck in there from your high level to your low level. And I'm going to just be straight up with you. I personally, you don't have to agree with me, but you did say you were going to listen to each of your board members in the 30 days. Think old school. Old school, you always look at two things, and I shouldn't bring this up, but you bring up when we had prayer in school. When we had prayer in school, we didn't have the fights we had. I teach at a school right now that we have prayer in school every day, and we don't have fights. Has nothing to do with it, but we also had not only mentors, we had supervisors. So if the idea if you did become our superintendent, and I will tell you, I think you would be an excellent choice. When somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to go back to the old school. I want to look at supervisors because I do feel like it's not for an I gotcha moment at all. It's to teach these teachers how to teach, how to engage, bring back some of the PD where old teachers like ourselves can get in there and say, hey, it doesn't matter what class you're teaching. If you're engaging, if you are outside the box, you're gonna get this. If you're just giving them an assignment and say do it, that's where your discipline problems come because you're sitting behind your desk, and kids today want to be engaged. So what is your I know I ask a big question, I guess, knowing that we have that problem and that's your issue at hand, will it fit into your 100-day plan that we possibly think of supervisors or something besides just, I think it's got to be more than professional development once every 9 weeks or once every 6 weeks. I think it's got to be something more than that.
Based on what you shared, I concur. I agree with you. We would have to evaluate how those teachers are doing, those emergency teachers in our district. I was lucky enough to meet Miss Angie, who's in charge of professional development for the district. We certainly need to talk to her about how these folks are doing and the systems that we have to evaluate the work that they're doing and how our children are faring with them. And we have to take a look at the budget, right, to see how we can grow targeted professional development for this group of emergency teachers. It is a very specific data point in our district that we need to pay attention to. I said at the first interview, teaching is a high-level craft, and to be thrown into a classroom without the prerequisite skills can be very detrimental to students. And the research is very clear about what happens to students if they have a teacher who is ineffective 2 years in a row. It's really hard to recover from that as a student. And so, Board Member Keith, I believe that this is something that we should pay attention to based on your having asked me the same question 2 interviews in a row. You have my attention, right, on this particular issue. And I certainly, it is in the plan, right, the targeted professional development. But this is a special case. This is a specific group of people who are teaching our students, and we need to know how they're doing. And more specifically, we need to know how our students are doing in their classroom. And I don't think it would be that difficult for us to figure that out based on my meeting with Miss Angie. She seems very passionate about being here. She talked about how much she loves being here. So I hope I've answered your question. Okay.
All right, our next question will come from Dr. Brenda DeRamus Coleman.
Thank you. You spoke a lot about cross-functional collaborations. We engaged a little bit about systems, and you have mentioned in several of your answers how you would bring different departments together. But when we talk about targeted, I'm going to ask a targeted question that does allow you to bring all those responses sort of into a box so that we might be able to be clearer. What steps would you take to ensure that school board members are well informed about district initiatives, financial matters, and academic performance data?
Thank you so much for the question. I want to say up front that as a superintendent, again, who has a lot of experience with boards and who actually wrote a book on building relationships with boards, good ones that last, and the nexus between good board relationship and longevity in the superintendency and success with district goals, it's important that the superintendent understands that any piece of information, any information that is shared with the board must be shared with all members of the board in an equitable fashion. You always want to make sure that every single board member has the same information at the same time, There are only a few nuances to that that I won't go into in terms of like an emergency situation where you really have to get to the board president and say, Board President, can you please disseminate this information for expediency as it relates to safety. But other than that, every board member must get the same information at the same time. And I have done that using many different strategies. One of the main strategies, and I think this happens across the country, I've worked in enough states now to know that superintendents are writing a weekly update to their board regularly. And sometimes they, it doesn't matter what day of the week you give it to them. And sometimes if it's a full week, I write 2 updates. You'll get an update from me on Wednesday and an update from me on Friday. And in that update, there is alignment between the strategic plan goals and the categories that I write about, right? So student achievement is a category in the update. Fiscal accountability is a category in the update. Human resources is a category in the update. Personnel, it's a confidential update that I send to you every week. And in particular, if there's something that we're going to have to discuss during the board meeting, you will have that category as well. Board meeting resolutions that you need information about. So I structure it so that you understand what the format is, that you become accustomed to the format, and you know where to look for the essential information. I think the other thing that's important is that the board have working committees so that they're always getting information about what's going on in schools. I've joined several districts as a superintendent, and there was no education committee. And that's okay, right? Maybe they called it something else, but we need a curriculum instruction committee, a board subcommittee, an education committee, whatever we're calling it here, because this is another place, right, where board members can become deeply engaged in the work. And then during the board meetings, you can report out on what's happening in those subcommittees. So, education subcommittee, audit committee, facilities committee. There's a lot of facilities projects going on in this district right now. This is another way to help the community understand how those facilities plans are moving forward, what's impacting the facilities plans in terms of interest rates going up, right? We borrowed the money a year ago, and now, that debt service is coming due, and we have to borrow more money, and what we initially thought the project would cost is now ballooning. I don't want to say ballooning out of control, because really 2 things matter with facilities projects: on time and under budget. On time and on budget, right? And so, if we can't move the planned facilities improvements forward, we have to tell the community why. And that's why we have a facilities subcommittee. And I'm really hoping that all of you are available to work in these committees so that when we have the board meeting, you are well informed and you can report out on that. Again, in the Education Committee, we will be talking about the progress monitoring that we're doing, how we're growing towards the strategic goals, and those things will be in the board update that I send you. So I hope that I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
5 minutes remaining.
Okay. You said that was the 5 minutes.
5 minutes remaining, and then there'll be a concluding statement.
All right. All right. Well, I'm sorry. We're sharing something up here. So
Okay.
forgive me if I have to I guess my next question, and you talked about transparency, and let me just say thank you for speaking on the work of committees, because that is how the board gets information and kind of get into the process without going over and stepping into lanes, but just kind of gaining that knowledge of what is happening in the district and seeing the work on the priorities being done and coming back to communicate it. So just thank you for that.
You're welcome.
My next question would be, what strategies would you, well, let me go back. We are so proud to have our millage to have passed It was a
Yes.
historical moment. It really was. Um, We also have a 3-month reserve.
Yes, you do.
And we have staff that, in our financial department who have worked years to make sure that happened. And that's another feather in the cap for MPS. And in the S&P, they asked for a long, which is Standard and Poor's, they asked for a long, term plan, fiscal plan for MPS. And so my question to you would be, what strategies would you implement to improve the efficacy and effectiveness of Montgomery Public Schools budget process while ensuring transparency and accountability to taxpayers? And who all would you invite to the table in that process?
Thank you so much for the question. So the budget season, as I said in my initial interview, is all the time, right? There's two ways that I think about school budgets. One, it's not our money, it's taxpayer money, right? And we need to be very clear about that and keep that in mind as fiscal stewards. And the other thing is transparency and alignment. And so one of the things that I certainly would be doing is partnering with the board and the budget experts in the school district, first and foremost. And I would make recommendations, including creating a public budget calendar, right? So that the community understands all of the steps that are involved in developing the school budget. I also would do public service announcements on the school budget with board members. This is one of your main responsibilities, right, is being the fiscal stewards of the district. And so I would not want to sit there by myself. I understand if you're not available, but I certainly would want to have opportunities for us to sit together and explain to the community about the budget calendar and about where we are and why we are. I also think that involving district leadership in the development of the budget by having individual meetings or group meetings with leaders and with administrative leaders and union leaders about the allocation of the budget is important. It's important for us to get information from the field about what they need in terms of fiscal support in order to meet the goals that we have set. I also think it's important to talk to the, again, local officials and state education department about our budget because there could be some things that they could support us with, and I really believe that there are. We could be able to say, for example, to the state education department, we really want to beef up our CTE opportunities. You know, I believe that college is for everyone. I don't necessarily believe that everyone should go at 18. I didn't go at 18, and look at me now, right? I'm sorry, I'm being a little flippant, but a college experience is for everyone. But sometimes people aren't ready at 18 to go. Sometimes they need a growth year, right? So how about making sure that when they graduate, they can access a job that provides a living wage where they're living above the poverty line? And we can do that if we grow our CTE programs. And maybe the state education department is interested in that as well. And so let's continue to have a conversation with them and other members of the business community to see if they can support the things that we desire in our budget. In terms of administrative leadership, they understand, as I said in the past, their responsibility to the building, and they understand that they're supposed to be able to capture resources for their building. We have to give them an opportunity to talk to us about that in the development of the budget. In terms of the community, I've done things like inviting formal parent structures into meetings with the superintendent and leadership to talk about the development of the budget. I've created budget ambassador programs where I have invited groups of parents to come in to teach them about the budget, because school finance is pretty complex. It's not like developing a home budget, right? And so you need to teach people about these things. And then they were able to go out and share information in your respective districts about how the budget is developed, why it's developed a certain way, the categories of the budget, how it's different than other types of budgeting. It just has to be ongoing. This information sharing has to be ongoing, but those are just some of the ways that I have engaged the board and other members of the community to be, I want to say partners in understanding why we're spending the money in the ways that we're spending it. And we have to be very clear that the ways that we're spending the money is aligned with the success targets that we've set for the strategic plan. And, you know, I never want to say no to anyone, and I don't. I just say, it's a good idea. It's a good idea, but it's outside of, right, what we're doing right now. Let's put it in the parking lot and see if we can do it later when we have more money.
Well, thank you. The key word that resonated with me is the fact that you'll teach, because many people don't know it's complex.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes remaining, so let's give you an opportunity for a concluding statement.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be one of 3 in terms of being considered for your next school superintendent. It means the world to me and my family. I grew up in a house that placed a high value on being in service to others. And it was expected that I would grow up and do something on behalf of children. I always say to people that my sole purpose in life is to protect the sanctity of childhood. And for obvious reasons, you probably know how that came to be. There were other children that I knew in the foster care system later on that didn't have the opportunities that I had. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And so this is not work for me. This is absolutely a calling. It is something that I have to do, that I must do. And I am coming out of retirement for Montgomery Public Schools to partner with you as a visionary and experienced leader, because I believe that together, all of us, the board, the school district, the community, the state education department, the local politicians, if we partner in a way that is meaningful, there is no end to the opportunity that we can provide to every student living in this district, to every educator that is coming to these schools every single day, to the region in terms of providing a boon to the economy. I talked to a young man who moved from Atlanta. I was at Waffle House the first time I came here, and he was so nice. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "I'm blessed and favored." And many people say that when I ask them how they're doing in Montgomery, Alabama. And I said, "Wow, you seem really happy." He said, "Well, I moved here from Atlanta because I don't know if you know this or not," because I told him why I was here. And he said, "I don't know if you know this or not, but this is the epicenter of licensing for beauticians." I said, "No, I didn't know that. But this is the place that you have to come to get licensed to work in that field." And I thought, wow, that's great. You know, I didn't know that, and maybe we can grow that program here in Montgomery, Alabama. So I just think there's a lot of opportunity here. I believe we're at a moment of inflection in Montgomery, and I believe that you need someone who's experienced across the board to come, and I want to be here. My family understands why I need to be here. My son's in college, so he doesn't have to move with me. So I'm coming all by myself with my 2 cats, George and Rainbow. And I really, really can't wait to join you as your leader. So thank you.
Thank you.
And FYI, we just cut the ribbon a few months ago on the beauty culture facility for CTI at Jag High School.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
it's such a pleasure to meet you and have you back again.
Thank you. We have 8 minutes before our next candidate. Yes, we started 8 minutes late, so we'll be caught up.